to another episode of Women in Research. I'm your host, Nekesa Esther, and with me is Dr. Bridget Kanini Mutemi, a research associate from Department of Chemistry. And of course, she will introduce herself, in a more elaborate way. Welcome, Dr. Bridget.
Thank you so much, Nekesa. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so Dr. Bridget, please introduce yourself like now properly in terms of, what you do. What would your business card say?
Okay.
Yeah.
My names are, I'll repeat them again. Bridget Kanini Mutemi. I'm a research associate at the Department of Chemistry. I hold a BSc degree in analytical chemistry, an MSc degree in material science and engineering, and a PhD in chemistry. I've also done a couple of postdocs in the area of nanotechnology, and I am a fellow of the Africa Academy of Science, as well as Africa Research Initiative for Scientific Excellence.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Bridget, you just told us that you have been at the University of Nairobi for 2 years.
Yes.
We will get to that. Like, that's your latest, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So before we get to that, the first question I always ask anyone who comes here is whether they saw or they dreamt of being where they are today. Did you, those questions of what did you want to be when you grow up? What did you used to say?
Okay, when I was a young girl,
Yeah.
I studied in a local primary school. I just saw a professor actually in my neighborhood. We only had one professor at the entire village.
Yeah.
So I always used to say I want to be a professor, but I didn't know what it entails.
Okay.
And I didn't know what it required.
Yeah.
But of course, after the first degree, when I finished my degree, I worked in the industry.
Oh.
I did not go straight to academia. I worked in the industry, quality control management. And then during that course, I realized that the work was so much of a routine, from 8 to 5, 7 to 7 sometimes. So I applied for scholarships for me to be able to further my studies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you wanted to be a professor, but you didn't have like any specific line that you were interested in at the time.
No.
So how then did you end up doing what you're doing? You must have been very good in sciences when you were in high school.
Yes, I was. I was really good in chemistry and mathematics. And during a time when I was applying, I actually wanted to be a dental surgeon.
Oh, wow.
So the first application I did for the placement was in dental surgery, but unfortunately that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Then I was put for the second selection, and the second selection I chose electrical engineering. Still I wasn't selected.
Okay.
Then the third selection we went to choose all the courses that are there,
Yeah.
and that's when I chose chemistry.
Okay.
Yeah.
By that time, what has changed?
But
Are you more aware, or did you just choose something that was just available?
I literally looked into the courses that are,
There's
I
a
may
list.
like.
Yeah.
There was a list,
Yeah,
so I
there's a
looked at the
list.
list of the course that stands out. It was a new course, analytical chemistry, so it was being rolled out. So that's why I chose it.
That's why you chose it.
Yeah, but not from the beginning. I just chose it because that's what was offered at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how was the experience going through the analytical chemistry that, remember, you chose because it's new, not because you wanted to?
The experience was not, the first class we were 24 of us, 20 boys and 4 girls.
Okay.
And at first I knew I don't want to do chemistry, so I still tried to change to dental surgery from the university perspective. So within the university I spent quite a number of times trying to apply in my first year, my second year, trying to change the course. I would attend classes, but in the back of my head I knew this is not the course I'm going to do. I'm definitely going to change. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And therefore, in my third year, that's when I changed my mind and realized that actually this is a destiny has chose this chemistry degree for me. And I embraced studying chemistry. From then, I really worked extremely hard so that I managed at least to pass really well. Yeah.
In the meantime, how was your performance when you were in, like one leg in, one leg out?
I can say that there were subjects that were quite easy.
Okay.
I would still get A's and B's and some C's, but from my third year I got A's throughout because time was not on my side. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So after that, you said you worked in the industry for some time?
Yes.
And that did not go well for you?
No, I worked in a cigarette company, actually, as a quality cigarette company, as a quality control supervisor. Our works were from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday to Saturday, and Sunday half day. So you can imagine that kind of work. So I was still under probation, and that's when I started looking for other opportunities, applying for scholarships. I actually applied for only 2 scholarships during that time, one in Japan, and I think the other one was in Singapore, but I didn't qualify.
So what,
and then, because the department had my applications because of the recommendations and everything, so when there was an opportunity, the South Korean government had an opportunity for a scholarship and they needed a student, then they nominated 2 of us from our class for the scholarship, and that's when I applied. And then after the competition, because it was a competitive process for the essays, I got the scholarship to study in South Korea for my master's.
You had mentioned the course. Can you please mention it again?
Material Science and Engineering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that in line with the analytical chemistry, or was that totally out of?
I came to learn later on that chemistry, physics, and biology and part of engineering are actually material sciences.
All right.
They are classified under material sciences. So it was just getting the broader version of it. And because in my undergraduate I did physics, chemistry, and biology in first year and second year, it tied in well with the initial program.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was, but it was a new course, I can admit.
The master's one now?
Yes. Okay. For me, material science and engineering.
Yeah.
But then we had to study the Korean language compulsory for 1 year.
Wow.
Of which you're supposed to get over 80% for the exam for you to qualify for masters.
Wait, so you got the scholarship, and then now you have to pass the language test, so that you do the masters you did in Korean language?
The masters you did based on the professor's language of expertise. So we only had one professor who could speak English. So the other coursework were done in Korean. So that's why Korean was mandatory. Yeah.
How was the experience?
It was fun for me because it was first time outside the country. So for some reason it was not difficult because I was excited to be out, and then also I was excited to learn a new language, but it was not easy. It was quite difficult.
It's not just learning the language, like speaking, but also writing. Did you have to learn how to write it?
You have to learn, the exams is categorized into 4. You have to speak Korean, you have to write in Korean, you have to read in Korean, and you have to listen. So there are 4 exams: listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
So you did that for a year?
For a whole year, yes.
Before you move on to now the masters?
Yes.
Was that under the scholarship still?
Yes, it was still under the scholarship. Wow. It was like a mandatory requirement through the scholarship. Okay. Yeah.
So tell me your experience of the masters now, going through it with this new language on board. How do you say material sciences in Korean? You know, because personally I will first struggle with that before you transition to do your your what is it called, the work, the theory, the theory that you're supposed to do, and then go ahead and do the project.
Yeah, we say aquakubonja. Yes.
Material sciences.
Yes, yes.
So you wrote, what did you write on?
My thesis was on sol gel synthesis of anatase and brochite titania by pH control for photocatalysis.
In layman's terms?
I was working on materials that can actually be able to, for example, purify water that is dirty. So in the presence of light, they break down contaminants and just purify the water. So that's in layman's language.
Yeah.
And that's, I was introduced now into the world of nanotechnology. That is working on materials that are in the dimension of the nanometer range. Just to bring you to perspective, one human hair is roughly 100 micrometers, and 1 micrometer is 1,000 nanometers. So one human hair, one strap of it is around 100,000 nanometers. So that means you are dealing with very small particles to be able to use for treatment of water. Wow. Yeah.
So that's where you started your interaction with nanotechnology.
Yes.
So moving on, how then did you move from now that master's to, how do you transition? Did you come back home?
After the completion of the master's, okay, in between the final year, I was looking for opportunities for PhD. Okay. And since that was my first postgraduate program, I hadn't published yet. And in Korea, it's very, very difficult to actually get a postdoctoral position without a publication. So I tried applying for PhDs in Korea, but unfortunately I wasn't lucky. And I can say that in a day I used to do like 6 applications.
What?
So roughly in a year I did over 600 applications.
Every day you put in 6?
Every day I put in 6. 3 in the morning, 3 in the evening, before I go to school, before and after. Just applying all over. Now by that time I just wanted to go anywhere that there's a scholarship for PhD. So I tried everywhere actually, UK, US. Some I would get partial funding, good response, but partial funding, and that was not good for me, so I would choose not to. And others, I learned actually how to deal with rejections. Because you wake up in the morning, you're like, we regret to inform, we regret. You're like, it's fine, you do another one. So then luckily enough, I happened to know that in South Africa they were also open for scholarships. So I applied there, and the first application I applied in South Africa, I received a positive answer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that's when
and it was fully funded?
Fully funded. Everything fully funded.
Wow.
So I moved from South Korea to South Africa. And I can say that the beauty of the South Africa Institute, I studied at the University of Witwatersrand, is that they gives you hands-on experience on instrumentation. In South Korea, despite us knowing the language, we were not given that exposure to actually run these equipments. We would be there, but in terms of doing it literally, having hands-on, it was not possible. So I felt like I may be a little bit underbaked if I claim to know a lot of nanotechnology and yet I don't know how to operate some of the equipment. So that was the added advantage of doing the PhD in South Africa. Yes.
So when you transitioned, what were you doing? What were you in PhD? What did you study for?
My PhD, I studied my PhD in chemistry. I went back to chemistry because chemistry is still material science, but my PhD was unique because it was 65% chemistry, 35% physics. So I was based in 2 different departments, doing the preparation of materials in chemistry and application in physics. Wow. And that was because of material science, so it was easy for me to really adapt into both spaces.
Yeah. So what did you end up writing on?
My project for my PhD was on the synthesis and I will say the real term and then
just the
layman language.
As it was written and then you'll translate it for us.
Synthesis and characterization of solid, hollow, worm-like and cold shell carbon nanostructures for application in organic photovoltaic devices and chemical sensors. So in layman's language, I was making carbon nanomaterials made of carbon for use in solar cells, that is to convert light energy to electricity and for use in sensing of pollutants. So for example, if I want to know how much ammonia is in the room, I used my materials to detect how much of these pollutants are in the environment. So that means I did not only the chemical aspect of it, but also the assembly of the devices.
So how long did that take you, like in terms of your whole PhD degree?
The PhD was strictly 3 years because it was under scholarship. You know, scholarship has very strict timelines. So it was 3 years.
Full-time.
Full-time, but also during the course you have to do teaching, you have to do tutorials, you have to take care of laboratory demonstrations. You have to be all round in terms of you're not just doing research, you're also learning administrative duties as well as teaching duties.
So you did a lot of that in VITS?
Yes.
Oh, that's really nice. So is that when you come back home after your PhD?
Unfortunately not. That was back in 2016. So I decided to pursue a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Witwatersrand, but in a different region. Like I was setting up the lab for the census. So during the PhD, I learned this, but then as a postdoc, my task was to set up the lab and get it up and running with the students. Then from there, I could shift. So I did a postdoc there at the University of Witwatersrand. Then I also did a postdoc at the University of Pretoria, but in the Department of Physics. So I broadened my area. Instead of looking at sensors only, I looked at energy storage. For example, batteries, working on batteries and supercapacitors, materials for that. So I looked into that, and during that time, the project I was working on was an international project between Italy and South Africa. So I would go to Italy and be back in South Africa within a course of 2 years. And then after that, that's when I decided to settle down. I settled down family-wise, but then I still continued again with another postdoc in Japan. So you're crossing between South Africa, Italy, and Japan? Yes. So you settled with you pursued family within which country? Now, where are you? I was in South Africa. All right. Yeah. All right. Oh, all right. But different cities. Yeah. So it was a long distance. Yeah. So after that, you still applied for another postdoc in Japan? Yes, because at the time, I had already gotten some experience, especially in this design. And in Japan, they needed somebody to actually help them design a lab. So that's why I applied for that postdoc. It's like, let me see actually if I've become an expert in this, especially for the sensors. And that's how I ended up going for doing the postdoc in Japan. So what do you say? You said I've designed a lab, I'm an expert in sensors, I'm an expert in please tell me how you describe yourself, some of your strengths. Some of my strength is that I'm very well skilled in, for example, nanomaterials, how to prepare them, how to characterize them, and also how to use them in assembling a device. When you talk about a device, let's say, for example, when you look at your watch, you have these films and how the watch works, designing all the different components of it to be able actually to make it work in a real environment. So that means you're cutting across physics and chemistry, combining the two aspects. Wow. Yeah. Hey, I'm so impressed. So okay, so so you go and design a lab in Japan? Yeah. You finished that within how long? Unfortunately, COVID. That's the time the COVID-19 started, so I couldn't finish the entire program. During the time of COVID-19, I had to come back home. I wanted to go back to South Africa. So yeah, because that time I'm about to ask, home is where now? Kenya, South Africa? I was supposed to go to South Africa, but they had closed their borders. So then I traveled to Kenya, and I spent 8 months actually in Kenya, away from my family, and just here, you know. I had been out of the country for more than 7-8 years. So it was not easy. But during that time of COVID, actually that's the time now I started applying for jobs here in Kenya, trying to see how I can apply my knowledge here. And it actually dawned on me that nanotechnology is not, we are still in the baby steps in the country. And that's what triggered me to start thinking about relocating back home instead of just staying abroad. Yeah. So how did that go? Is that how you ended up at the University of Nairobi? No, no. I got a first job in another university as a full-time lecturer away from Nairobi, teaching chemistry. So that was in 2021. So I started teaching in 2021. It was quite good for me and very, very exciting for me. But now because of family, I had to resign because it was a bit far. And therefore I had to resign for family reasons. And when I resigned is when I also tried to, during that transition period, I had been applying for grants throughout, applying for proposals, trying to get funding to do nanotechnology-based research. So during the transition time, that's when actually I got a positive feedback as an early career researcher for my first grant ever.
Wow, congratulations.
Okay, apart from the fellowships.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. So that's when I actually joined the University of Nairobi in 2022 as a Africa Research Initiative Scientific Excellence Fellow. So this is a program, a RISE program, is sponsored by the European Commission, but it's provided by the Africa Academy of Science in partnership with the African Union and the European Union. And I'm the only Kenyan to receive the RISE Fellowship. So we are 44 people all over Africa, but I'm the only Kenyan to get the funding as an early career researcher to establish a nanotechnology lab here at the University of Nairobi.
Woo! Okay, congratulations to you, congratulations to us too. Yeah, they're illuminating, and that's such great news. So how far are you in terms of implementing that?
Okay, so the project itself actually looks into plastic waste, and what we're doing here, we're trying to convert plastic waste into low-cost carbon nanomaterials for use in monitoring pollutants and nanoplastics. So plastic pollution is a big issue. It's actually the second disaster after climate change. It's a big challenge. And what happens with plastics is that when they're exposed to light and mechanical forces, they break down. And they break down to microplastics within the micrometer range, like the size of your ear, for example. But then with time, they also break down into nanoplastics, sizes that you can't see with the human eye. And when they do that, they actually become harmful because of the small size, harmful not only to the environment, but also to the human health. In 2020, they were discovered in the human placenta, microplastics. In 2022, they were discovered in the human blood and human breast milk. So that means we are dealing with an emerging contaminant, and that's where my research comes in, trying to convert the big plastic into nanoreactors, and then using the same nanoreactors to monitor and to remove these nanoplastics from water and from air.
Wow.
So
you are such a big deal to us, clearly. Like you're keeping us alive. All right. So that's what you're doing at the Department of Chemistry?
Yes, that's what I'm doing at the Department of Chemistry. I've set up a lab, which is currently I have several students, but by the end of the program, which is 5 years, I should be I have supervised to completion 4 masters and 2 PhDs, meaning that I will have built the human capacity and in the university, but also in Kenya. We have bought several equipments that are one of its kind in Kenya. For example, a chemical vapor deposition reactors. We have also bought high-speed centrifuge, thermogravimetric analyzer, the only one in the country as we speak currently, with its own nitrogen and oxygen generators. And we are purchasing more because we are still in the process of the project that will help us achieve this goal. So we have built the research infrastructure here. The Department of Chemistry, University of Nairobi, is really good for nanotechnology.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. Like I've even run out of questions. I'm that overwhelmed. how does it make you feel first? The whole turnout. In my thoughts are, okay, first, if COVID didn't happen, maybe you wouldn't have come back home, and all this wouldn't have happened here in Kenya. Maybe, just maybe. But so how does that make you feel, having come back to Kenya to, you know, to start all this?
I think the first thing is I feel very happy to have come back home. And I also feel that in life, you learn so many things through adversity, because if it's not because of these adversities, we can't change the direction of our thought. So the COVID pandemic was bad, yes, but it, on the good side, it changed my way of thinking and helped me to come back home and give back to the society, as well as be able to contribute to the body of knowledge here in Kenya. But I'm still an early career researcher, so I'm just starting.
No doubt about that. But you see, like, I after listening to your story, I wouldn't want to get caught up in the label, because you've done so much. And what was the motivation? What was pushing you from, like, who jumps from master's to PhD and then to postdoc, to postdoc, to postdoc? What was the motivation? What was pushing you?
I think one thing that motivated me was that for you to have a wide range of skills and for you to be very relevant in this emerging world, things are changing too quickly, you need to have as much skills and expertise as possible. So one thing that motivated me was I need to learn this skill and really be good at it. And if I feel I've not achieved it, then I can do more fellowships to be really good in this skill so that I'm good at something. And that's what really made me pursue more postdocs, so that I build my expertise in nanotechnology, cutting across, and also build connections and networks, because back here in Kenya, majority of the work I do is through collaborations. And these collaborations are in Japan, Italy, South Africa, Brazil. They're all because of the people that I met during all those fellowships. And if that was not the case, then I would not have people to collaborate with.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And the other question is, why are my questions disappearing today? That's how impressed I am and speechless. Oh, I wanted to ask about now your social life. Like, what was going on this other side of your life in terms of first your parents, like you left them, yes. So what are they saying? This jumping from one country to the other. Are they just happy? What are you doing for money in the meantime? Because you told me you just applied for fully funded scholarships and you're getting them, you're going. So what are you doing for money and what are you doing for all the other things in your life?
Okay. In terms of the social aspect, of course, after I finished my PhD, the first question every parent asks you is that you're now a doctor, right? You're a lady, aren't you getting married? That's one. Number two, why are you just outside there? Come back home. We need you. Come back home. So those are some of the things. But I would tell them that I'm just doing this because of what I want to gain, but of course it's not easy to understand. But the beauty is I had a partner, and my partner is also in the academic field. So as I was doing postdoc, he was also doing postdoc. So we were more or less supporting each other in that space. And therefore they would be like, oh, you're with your husband, so it's fine. We will not ask many questions. Yeah. But I can tell you it's not easy because they don't understand.
What are you guys doing for money?
For money, we were earning full fellowships. So the fellowship pays you a salary, of course, and takes care of all the research that you're doing. So you have money for upkeep in whichever country you're in, and you can do wherever you invest with it if you want. Yeah. So at least that was catered for. Yes, it was all full fellowships.
That's so interesting. That is quite a journey. So what do your parents say now that you're back home and that you're here? You seem settled. Let's not... Maybe after 5 years, you'll up and left again.
No. We are here to stay. Kenya is our country and we want to make it better. And that's why we are here contributing. They're very happy, actually. when we move back here, they are very, very excited that they can just make a call. You know, sometimes they call and you're busy, you can't call back, you can't make a direct call. But no, it's a good thing that we are here, we are contributing to the society. We engage also with the local communities, especially the high schools and the primary schools, to try and mentor young girls, especially in the area of science. Yeah, but one thing I can say, you need a very good support system. If you're doing studies in science, especially for female, you need a good support system, because without a good support system, it may become a little bit difficult. What did it look like for you? What's the major challenge you faced, maybe crossing over the different cultures in the different countries, and yet you're trying to study? Apart from the Korea one, because it took me out. Yeah, I think, of course, the first thing is you have to adapt to the new culture. But one of the biggest challenges actually in my life, it's all sort of personal, is that while I was transitioning between South Africa and Japan at that time, we had a major shift in our lives, and we lost our first child. So it was really tragic. It was not easy, but as I say, the support system is what is important. So the friends that we had built in South Africa, the support they gave us, I mean, it was really awesome. Without the support, we would have broken down. But also, it also made us think, if we were home, things would be different. You have got a lot of people coming to stay with you, but at that time, you know, you're in a foreign land, everyone has to work. So people are trying to get their timings right. But all I can say is that for women, you need a good support system. And when these challenges happen, you just adapt. There's nothing wrong with it. Different people face it. You just adapt, and just, for the moment, you take your time to heal. But then again, don't let it define you. Let it just be like an energizer. And I thank God, because I'm a Christian, it gives you the strength you need in every situation. So that's one thing I can say. Oh my God, so sorry. Well, then I am so glad to have had this. What does tomorrow look for you? What's the way forward for Bridget? In terms of research, in terms of... I look forward towards impacting the society, especially the Kenyan space. In the area of nanotechnology, and I want to be not only a top scientist, but also a role model to the young girls, and also try to grow these fields in terms of actualizing it. You see, it's still in the lab scale, and we want to actualize it into the space, such that a chemistry undergraduate student can say that I want to work in a nanotechnology industry in Kenya, not in any other country. And that's why I want, that's the influence I want to have. Yes. Wow. Do you have a parting shot, Dr. Bridget? Anything you feel like maybe you have forgotten, you haven't said, or just an encouragement now to an upcoming researcher? I think I will have two parting shots. The first one I'll say is that no matter the challenges, just don't give up. I've had people who just apply for scholarships. They send 10 applications and they tell me, it's not working. I stopped doing that. I mean, 10 is a small number. You need to get yourself motivated and keep doing what you want to do to achieve what you want to achieve. Don't give up. Just keep pressing on. And I will use this famous quote, the abortion of potential is the death of the future. Wow. So don't abort your potential, because your future will be affected. Wow. Yeah. Oh my goodness. That was the beautiful Dr. Bridget Kanini Mutuma Mutemi. Trust me, I will not forget that. I haven't met a lot of nanotechnologists, so I won't forget that, not in the near future. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I hope you've learned a thing or two. Have a good one.